You're watching Extras from the Extension on Eagle Community Television. This show is brought to you by Carico Implement.
Hi, I'm Holly Dickman with the Ellis County Extension Office, and you're watching Extras from Extension. And today I'm going to talk about a topic that I'm starting to see a little bit more of this time of year, and it's very common, and that's herbicide drift. This is the time of year where the weeds are growing everywhere. They tend to not be affected by the drought, it seems, and so one way to get rid of those is with the use of herbicides, and that's very common for people to do in their yards or in their planting beds. Now, there are certain trees and shrubs that can certainly affect, so you have to be aware of these things in your landscape and make sure that you read that herbicide label to make sure that it will not negatively affect the trees. Now, behind me is a red bed tree, and this happens to be a tree that is extremely sensitive to herbicide drift. And so a lot of times you'll see trees, red bed trees, with leaves that are kind of distorted. Maybe they're a little bit cupped or curled. And that is a sign of herbicide drift or some sort of chemical damage. It's so common on red beds around town that some people actually think that that's actually how the red bed leaf looks. But that's not true. The red bed leaf should be a nice heart-shaped leaf, and if you see a little bit of cupping or distortion, that's a signal that there's something not quite right, and in many cases it's herbicide drift. Now, I said that this is a very sensitive plant. This is actually one of those indicator plants that there's been something used in the area, and it may not be even on your own lawn or in your neighbor's lawn or even the lawn across the street. If it's a warmer day and someone has applied some 2,4-D, for example, it could have been several blocks away, maybe even a couple of miles away if you're in the country, and you could have some of these drift type symptoms show up on some of your plants. Now, another good indication of whether or not it truly is herbicide drift is if you're seeing the same type of symptoms on different types of plants throughout the yard. So let's say, for example, we see this symptom on a red bed, we see it on an ash tree, we see it on some roses in the planting bed. If you're seeing that same type of curling leaves or distorted growth on several different types of plants, that's an indication that it's not probably a disease or an insect problem. It's more likely herbicide or chemical damage. This tree also is looking a little bit thin, and the homeowner was wondering about that. And unfortunately, I'm seeing quite a bit of this around the region this time of year, and a lot of this is simply some drought stress or some stress on the tree. We were so dry over the last 3 years, and then we had a very dry winter, and we've had an extremely dry start to this summer. And so we're starting to see some of these symptoms on trees show up now. They have a delayed response to this drought stress. And so thinning trees, maybe some branch dieback, maybe leaves are smaller than normal, or what you would consider normal. Maybe the tree's a little slow to leaf out this year. All things that I've been seeing around the area, and it's very common with drought stress. So once again, if you have questions about your tree, make sure that you have it either checked out or check it real closely to make sure that it's actually dead. Sometimes the concern is, well, there's no leaves on the tree or the leaves are dropping, that branch is dead. That's not always the case. You just have to check and see. One way to check and see if the branch is still alive, which obviously this one is since it has leaves, but let's pretend it didn't. And you could just go up and kind of scratch the surface of the branch with your thumbnail. If it's nice and green underneath, that branch is still very much alive, and so you just want to give it some time. Don't go ahead and remove those branches prematurely thinking that they're dead when they're very much alive, and the tree may send out a second flush of growth. So if you have questions about the health of your trees, please contact your local Extension office for more information. Reporting for K-State Research and Extension and Extras with Extension, I'm Holly Dickman, Ellis County Horticulture Extension Agent.
You're watching Extras from the Extension on Eagle Community Television. This show is brought to you by Carico Implement.
Spring is here, and that means it's time to come out and visit Carico Implement in Hays, Kansas for all your lawn care needs. We stock and sell the full line of John Deere riding lawn equipment, along with Honda walk-behind mowers and generators. We also offer the full lineup of steel power products. If your project requires even more muscle, check out our full lineup of John Deere compact tractors and skid loaders. And don't forget, we have the parts and services to keep you up and running all spring long. So whatever your spring lawn care and maintenance needs are, come on out to Carico Implement for a solution that fits.